today I'm really happy because I have a man on Soul Traveller. And this is going to be a deep conversation now. This is Saahil from the Decluttering Coach. He's actually a decluttering coach. And I met him a few weeks ago. And for a lot of men, I mean, we've had this discussion. I feel that they do keep a lot inside, and women love to chat and share their problems, and it does help with their well-being. But Saahil was very open when I met him, so I really wanted to bring him on the show because I think I wanted you to encourage other men to be just as open and vulnerable. So let's start with the basics, right? A little bit of background. You have a family, you're a dad, you know, you have a great job, but something was not right with you. You weren't very happy. Tell me a little bit about it.
So, you know, it's like you mentioned, I was living a good life, you know, no complaints. It's not like I had some major challenges, but I felt incomplete. And I felt that I wasn't able to be the authentic self. It was almost like I had a mask on permanently. And it was only, you know, it's one of those situations where you only realize how things are when you've experienced something better.
Okay, so what was it that made you feel, okay, I'm not living my true self? What was it? Was there an incident? Was there a feeling?
Absolutely. So I was on a holiday in Europe, and I was there with some very dear friends, and something magical happened there. Basically, a safe environment was created, and the word safe is very important. Second, I was not being judged.
Was that a space of just men or both?
In this particular case, it happened to be all men. We were 8 men. And that's where I became vulnerable. I just unmasked completely. And I removed every single layer. And it's almost like I felt completely free and open, you know, and I could be me.
What do you think it was as a man that made you not feel like you could be vulnerable or open?
You're the man of the house. You know, there are all these...
The provider.
Yeah, the provider. You know, emotions are a sign of weakness, especially in front of the other men. You know, you might open up perhaps in front of some women, but, you know, in front of men, you got to be macho.
So when you did open up, what did that do to all of you in that room? Did your relationship change? Did you just think, why have I been holding this in? Or why aren't all men like this?
What happened in this particular scenario was when others started sharing as well, you realize, hey, wait a minute, I'm not alone. A lot of us were sharing common challenges in life. And this safe space that was created, not only was no one judging, but we weren't telling each other what to do.
It's funny because a lot of people, and I think it's an amazing thing, there's a lot of women who have platforms now and empowering women. But one thing I do know, I feel that we have to be very careful as women, is while you're empowering yourself, don't leave the men behind. You don't want to cause more of a separation. You want to educate the men so they evolve at the same level spiritually and emotionally, and not be afraid of doing that too.
Yeah, and this is what's happening. The man had a certain role, and now it's almost that, you know, the woman can be the leader of the house. So that puts the man in an even worse position than he already was if he's bottling everything in. And that's where all these horrible things start happening. You know, we spoke about it earlier, but I believe the stats say 75% of suicides are men. You look at most mass shootings, men. You look at most rapes, men. So clearly there's a challenge that's happening with the males that needs to be addressed, because this is not healthy for society. Yes, it can ruin relationships within your circle of friends, your family, but if it's happening on a large scale, it's messing it up for the entire society.
Because women, I find, because they're very communicative, you know, a lot of men might say something and say, don't share it with them, but if you don't share it, it's continuously within you. And you're talking about suicide. I know a doctor, and she comes from she works in a small village in England. And she said what they know is that when somebody is down, if it's a woman, okay, they might come and talk to her. They might give them antidepressants, take them to therapy, tell them to do yoga or something. She goes, when we know in the village there's a man who is under stress and depressed, they're on high alert, because that is the one that will commit suicide higher than the other one.
Wow.
So in this city, obviously they're all wealthy. One had issues with money and was going bankrupt. And he turned up in a taxi in front of the surgery, and she opened the door and he'd slit his wrists. So she knew this was going to happen. So I really feel it's so important for men to be open. And, you know, we're human beings first. You're not a man or woman. You're a human being with feelings. So from that moment of talking with your friends, how did you become a decluttering coach?
You know, that's when I realized that through the power of vulnerability and being in a safe space and by opening up, what happened was I felt so much joy. And I want to be clear here, there's happy and there's joy. And for me, happiness is in moments. Joy is kind of the lifelong
A contentness.
contentness, exactly. And I tried to remember, when did I feel like this before for so many days in a row? Yes, we've had our peaks throughout life, but in my case, I hadn't felt this free and so much joy for an extended period of time. Even though we live in a world where there is judgment, if I can get to even half of what I felt that day, I'm much better off than I am right now.
Yeah.
So then I started asking myself, what clutter is holding me down? And if you remember the older films where they had, in prisons, they had the ball and chain, right? So it felt like I had a lot of these tied around my ankles, and I just had to identify what they were in my life and then start cutting them one at a time.
Yeah.
So I eliminated things from my diet which were causing harm to my body or uneasiness. And I also did a blood test of essential vitamins and minerals and found out that I was lacking in 2 important vitamins, which was D3 and B12. So once I supplemented and I removed things that were harming me, all of a sudden, I didn't change my exercise or anything else in my life. All of a sudden, my body fat went from 24% down to 13%. And a lot of clothes stopped fitting me.
Yeah.
So it became kind of easy
Yeah.
to declutter my
But
closet.
you didn't buy new ones? That's what I would end up doing.
So, everyone thinks that I can't buy anything, right? Because I'm decluttering. And it always comes down to the want versus need. I used to always say, I need this, I need this, I need this. And I quickly changed that to I want it, because what we need is the basic shelter, food, and maybe, a few other things. But the rest of the stuff is really a desire. It's a want. So I changed my terminology when I wanted things.
Yeah.
And I would ask myself multiple times, do I really need it, want it? And only after asking myself multiple times, the
Yeah.
answer was yes, I went and bought it. Whereas before, I like it, boom, here's the credit card and I'll buy it.
So what about, so we've done the body, we've done the materialistic. What about the mind? What is it we're decluttering? Because we have a lot of programs, a lot of beliefs. How do you do that?
So it starts with awareness. I find that most people, including myself, I was very reactive. So if you said something that I did not like, for example, I would react,
Wow, okay.
right? And usually the reaction would be something negative.
And is that because you're defensive or sensitive about it?
Well, the key is when you start becoming aware, what you're doing is, it's almost like you've removed yourself from your body and you're looking in and you're saying, why am I feeling this way when Poonam just said this?
What about people? I mean, come on, people can be draining, exhausting. It can be family members, it can be partners. I mean, how do we balance that in our life? Because it affects your well-being, a lot of it.
Majority of the audience will assume that it's how to remove people from your life, okay? That's not actually what I'm trying to achieve here. So let's get this straight. You can almost categorize people into 2. Those that raise your energy levels and those that are draining your energy levels. The ones that raise your energy levels, you just need to hang out with them more.
Yeah, everyone hangs out with me because that's what I like to do.
And if you're not, why? I mean, if you're feeling great just being around that person, you should make sure that you're meeting them on a more frequent basis. So it's not about distancing yourself or removing someone from their life. It's being able to be you in front of anyone.
When this changed you and you became open and more vulnerable, how did this change your relationship with your wife?
It shot up. In a nutshell. Yes, there was a dip initially because she's wondering, why is this guy communicating so much with me and being so open and him sharing his emotions? So we agreed that we would listen and understand from the other person's perspective. We won't raise our voices. We make sure we're in a setting where it's private and we can engage with each other. So when we agreed to this and we started sharing, we've become a lot closer as a couple. And it's funny because even though we had a happy marriage, I didn't realize how far apart we were until we started opening up.
Yeah, so do you feel like now today you're living your authentic self? Do you feel lighter within yourself?
So am I living my authentic self? Not 100%. Decluttering is a journey. Am I chipping away continuously on getting to that state? Yes. Will I ever get to 100%? I don't know. But as I mentioned, even if I'm significantly higher than I was on that trip in Europe, I'm in a much better place.
I think we were probably 100% when we were babies because we didn't have an expectation of anything.
Absolutely.
And I think as you get older, it's a natural instinct where you're bringing people into your life. You're having experience. Your heart can be broken. It's just the journey. You know?
Absolutely. A lot of this journey is about self-acceptance, about self-love. You know, I tell people, if you don't love yourself, how do you expect others to love you? If you don't trust yourself, how do you expect others to trust you? And if you don't have confidence in yourself, how do you expect others to have confidence in you? So a lot of it stems with the I. It's a very selfish journey. Yeah. But, you know, sometimes people go, oh, but, you know, that's selfish, or you're only thinking about yourself. But here's the thing. Before, I was the people pleaser. I used to focus on others, what others thought, and constantly try to make others happy.
Me too.
Right? And in that, I realized two things. One, it's impossible to make everyone happy. Yeah. And two, I was not taking care of myself in the process. When I focused on the I and I became my number one priority, I became a better person. And science, this is scientific, right? We're all cells, right? We're billions of cells. Cells have energy. When we're in a better place, we're radiating positive energy. Guess what we're attracting? Positivity. Whereas before, when I was not in a good place, I wasn't attracting the right energy. So by being selfish, all the relationships around me have actually improved.
But what I wanted to finish on is I wanted just to say something to the men out there watching. Like, what would you say to men who, to help their mental, emotional, spiritual well-being through your own experience? What are some of the tips you would give them?
Well, the first thing is follow me on Instagram. No.
That's a great thing to do, yes.
No, I do share a lot. You know, I believe sharing is good.
And you do a lot of workshops, so a lot of men can come to
Absolutely,
these talks.
absolutely. But you know, for people who are living all over the world, there are men groups, all men groups that are being created. You know, you have one here in Dubai called Any Man. You have, I've heard of another one in the US called Every Man, where it's just men who are getting, you know, together. A safe space is being created. There is no judgment, and they're able to share whatever feelings that they have.
But you know what? I think the majority of men are closed up, but I have come across women who are not as open too. And I think as a human being in general, if you keep too much in, it's not healthy, full stop, mentally or physically. It can create ailments and illnesses. So, you know, decluttering is a very strong and powerful word, I think, that you've come up with, which I really like. And you are the decluttering coach now in Dubai, I think the one and only. Yeah. So Saahil, to end this show, you've talked about how we carry a lot of weight and baggage. So these earrings are a little bit heavy. So this is my decluttering token for today, especially for you, Saahil. I'm not going to throw them away yet. That's going to take a bit of time, but they're off me right now. So I want to thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it, for being so open. I really do.
Thank you, Poonam. But before we end, I'm just going to say one thing to the audience. We always ask ourselves, or tell ourselves, I'm going to start this one day. How about we switch it around and make this day one?
There you go. Today is day one. So start decluttering your mind, your body, the people around you if need be, and those old jeans you never wear. Okay?